Okay, hello. I'm gonna do a review for Grand Theft Auto 5 now that I guess, finished the game. I'm up to 75.8% or something like that. I finished the last mission, so yeah, I'm just gonna rattle off my opinion of it. Some of it may overlap with another video I made. I still have roughly the same opinion, but hopefully I feel like I could really summarize some of the things I feel about it. That I think could improve it. Okay, let's start with the final mission. There's this arbitrary choice at the end. You got three options. Potentially I'm spoiling it, but I didn't like that. I think it's gimmicky. I think it's unnecessary. There's a famous movie critic, Roger Ebert, and he said he sort of got into trouble with gamers because he made a comment that video games can't be art or something to that effect. And I understand what he meant and the point he was making, and I actually really agree with it. But I think, and then everyone got upset and said, video games can be great. There's all these great video games with great music and dialogue and stories, and they're interactive, and they can be taken very seriously. And I think that's true. And hopefully there'll be better and better games, but a part of his complaint was, imagine if, like, say, Romeo and Juliet, there were multiple possible endings. It'd be like a choose your own adventure sort of thing. I tend to like, with the story, with the game or a book, a movie, whatever, I want them to pick a story and a flow, and I can feel the potential for different scenarios, different ways that it could have turned out, but it can still just have one final ending. And I prefer that. I find it silly to play a video game and then think, alright, now I've got to go back and play the other endings to see what they're like. Or, again, it feels like customizing everything. Like, I gotta, buy the clothes that suit me and get the haircut and tattoos that I like, which don't do anything. And then at the end, I've got to pick the choice that suits what my character would do. And I don't like that. I just think it's silly. I think pick your ending, pick your story, make it gripping and entertaining, and a bit like, say, the point and click adventures like Monkey Island. You can have little choices of dialogue that slightly change the way certain things play out, or to get information from other characters. Grand Theft Auto 5 and GTA doesn't give you those choices. That's fine. There's just dialogue, but anyway, so yeah, so that's the first thing. It's just a gimmicky choice at the end that's unnecessary. Let's see. Okay, one thing that I think would work better for GTA, I think I said this last time, this idea of ascension. You've got to start like an RPG, where you start with a character on level 0 or level 1 or whatever. And then you gain experience. Now in GTA it doesn't have to be experience, you don't have to have levels and points. But you can have this sort of gaining of power and status and space that you can go into. I think that works much better. So, for example, here's what I would sort of do. I actually like the idea of starting the video game with no weapons. You don't even necessarily know how to use a weapon. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but whatever. I don't need to know much about the main character. Make them very sort of a blank template, not too much crazy personality, and they're the neutral protagonist through which we see all of these different parts of, like, a city, a world that's a bit of chaos and a bit of conflict, but not just everyone's crazy, but a bit more insightful than that. Seeing parallels between the police and certain gangs and the mafia, organized crime, the way that they all have their own codes and rules and their own hypocrisy or inconsistencies, their own individual flaws with each human being. And then with side missions could be, you do some crazy bank heists with, Trevor, Michael, and Franklin, or characters like that. That was a big problem with GTA 5, is that the missions could be in any order. 90% of them you could swap around. The bank heists were sort of fun, but another thing, it shouldn't make you do every part of the mission, going and buying masks or overalls, or every mission started with driving somewhere. I'm not trying to be punny or whatever, but it drove me nuts. I just started getting frustrated. It's like predictable. Imagine if every James Bond movie, you know, when he goes to an exotic location, it shows him on the plane, nothing happening, or it shows him driving a car. We don't need to see that. You just cut to him getting out of a cool sports car and we get it. Okay, he drove to this place. We don't need to see the journey. And the same with these games. If there's a little cut scene, you know, and the first thing we're going to do is go somewhere, just cut to me, my character getting out of the car at the location, and then let me do the mission. I don't mind a bit of driving, but it was just every time. And yeah, with these big bank heists, there'd be too many parts leading up to it, which were just lame, like just stealing one truck and then parking it somewhere, or just looking to see what happens where these trucks go and then flying back. Okay, so anyway, back to my idea of Ascension. I'll keep jumping around, it's gonna happen. I like the idea of starting, you can't even jack a car, you're limited to a certain area, and you might even have a legitimate job, and your first 1 or 2 missions are just normal, doing things to get a little bit of money, and then there's like a little connection, you know, and you do a favor for someone, they give you a bit more money. 1 or 2 missions later, you get taught, you're given a gun, and you're given a more important job, and then from then on, you have a gun. Another thing I should mention that I like that existed in GTA 2 was just that there were like 3 competing gangs, and they were just always there. And you know, you could get, if you killed certain people from a gang, you'd get credit from another one, and that one would hate you. And there was a way, because there were 3 of them, I figured out a way you could get one to love you and one to hate you, because you killed lots of them. And then if you did that all the way to the maximum, you could then kill lots of whichever, I think the other one, and then they would start to hate you while this other one would start to love you, and eventually they'd go back to being neutral. And you could end up, you could get 2 gangs to love you, to really like you, and one to hate you. I figured out that was sort of like the optimum trade-off, I think, that you could achieve in GTA 2. But anyway, the idea is to have gangs and have danger. So at the start of the game, you don't have a gun, and there's gangs around the place. So that would limit where you can go. You could easily die. A big problem with GTA 5 is when you die, you lose $5,000 or so. And the missions, half of them pay like $1,000 or less. Or like, you do some taxi missions and you get $100, a couple $100. And it's just depressing, the time it takes to get $5,000. And then, you know, like in a game show, let's say you had 5 points for every question, and then, you know, at the end of this 20-minute, half an hour show, imagine if they had a question worth 1,000,000 points. You know, it would be so silly, it would defeat the purpose. And that's what it's like at the end of GTA 5. I mean, again, sort of spoiling, but their bank heists have involved so much more money than the other parts that it's not funny. It's like all the other stuff is pointless. If you're gonna end up with $15 million or anything, even just $1 million, compared to all these, you know, $6,000 or I don't know, you've got $48,000 that you've built up, and then you end up with you know, $3.5 million from a mission. There's no comparison. So I think that was silly. And also there was not enough skill involved in GTA 5. It felt like things were too forced and artificial, and you just go through the motions. Whereas when I played like Mass Effect 2 and 3 and like lots of other games, Metal Gear Solid 4, I felt like it was just, there were certain dynamics, there was the potential to die relatively easily, but you had lots of different tools that you could try to use, lots of powers. And you know, you really had to come up with some kind of strategy. There'd be maybe a bit of luck involved. Sometimes you'd get through and think, oh, that was a bit easier this time. But at least there was skill. It wasn't just, GTA 5 a lot of the time feels a bit too random. And I did enjoy some of the shootouts, but I thought there should be more. Anyway, so okay, so my idea. So at the start of the game, you know, and you do a mission, you get a gun, and now instead of, now you used to be restricted to a certain area that you now become familiar with and you're fond of because that's your character's base. Now you can start going into the gang territories and you can defend yourself a bit. You've got a gun, you can shoot back. A little later you learn how to jack a car. Now you've got a bit more ability to go around the place. That makes it really meaningful, and then that's exciting. It's like you're building up, and then I just think any series of missions that you do, again, I really like the taxi missions, ambulance, fire engine, putting out fires, vigilante, helping the police. You could also have standard like assassin missions, finding cars and bringing them back. That and that you have like a set of them. I'd be happy with up to 50 of those with no questions asked. Just you don't even need an intro, but then like maybe not 50, so 20 or 30, and then you do those, and then you accumulate. They like the early ones are not worth as much, and then the later ones they get pay better and better, and you get better and better rewards, and at the end of it you get some kind of reward. Like if you finish all the ambulance missions, maybe you don't have to pay hospital fees, and then that way when you finish the game you feel like you've got lots of stuff to show for it. With GTA 5 I feel like all I've got is the money from the last bank heist which dwarfs all the other money I had from everything else, and a few properties, but I don't really know what I can do with them. And yeah, nothing else. Like, I mean, there's a few. I think Trevor has like a plane or a helicopter in his sort of hangar. But just another major problem with GTA 5, probably the biggest thing, is it doesn't feel as fun as any of the other Grand Theft Auto games. I consider myself a big fan of that series. I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but like, I feel like with Pixar and Christopher Nolan, a few things where like, I called it, when he was going to direct Batman Begins, I was like, this is going to be a really good movie, because they're rebooting it, and they're not getting some guy that's made a mediocre romantic comedies, they're not getting someone that's done music videos. They're getting a director that's done one or two really good thrillers, an up-and-coming, really interesting director, and they're giving, who seems to really care about Batman and was drawn to it. It's the perfect decision. And Pixar, I just could tell, well, I don't know, it's not like I make millions of predictions and then I'm wrong later. I tend to be consistent, but after Toy Story I thought Bugs Life would be good, and then I really liked it, and then Toy Story 2, I was actually skeptical. I was like, really? Already? Can't they do something new? But then it was really good. I was pleasantly impressed and surprised, and Monsters Inc. I was super excited, and then they just, everyone else is catching up. And GTA, when GTA 2 existed, I thought, this is awesome. And GTA 3, I was like, this is going to be so good. I didn't know it would be that good and that, like, revolutionary. I don't know if that's an overstatement. I don't think it is. But anyway. Okay, so a few other things. This is a bit weird, but when I was a kid, I used to, I finished maths early and I draw lots of pictures. I tended to draw a lot of pictures of guns and cars for some reason. And I liked Transformers. I used to always like things that were functional, that did something. Moving parts, and, they can shoot something, or they can move, they've got wheels. They can open up, they can close, they can capture something. And I made that analogy last time between boys sort of toys and toys for boys and toys for girls, where girls' toys tend to be, I mean, I'm generalizing, but they look nice. You adjust them and you make them look pretty and you pretend to do things, whereas the boys' toys, it's all action and excitement and you're doing things, and it's still pretend, but obviously, but instead of things looking like things and imitating, it's things impact and make things happen. And yeah, anyway, so that's what I like in a video game. I want things that are happening. A bit like maybe with books, I prefer books with lots of verbs as opposed to adjectives. I can't read books with too much description. I get lost. I don't know what they're talking about. I have no idea if I'm imagining it the way they are. Maybe because I'm mathematically minded, I'm very, I don't know, analytic, and not always. I like flavor and color, but I don't know. So anyway, with GTA, the relevant point, like they have, clothes shops, tattoo parlors. I don't know if it's called a parlor, whatever. You can get a haircut. All these things that I just think do not belong in GTA. Mini games like tennis, darts. I don't think I've played darts. I can't even think yoga. Like that, I just think that's a really silly idea and a waste of time. I just think the focus should be on things that relate to the game, that use the world that you're in. If I think of Mass Effect 2, I think of certain locations where there was like some kind of epic battle and I had to repeat it a few times, and there was a certain structure. I had to go around to this area, and maybe in this place there was like the sun would damage my shield, so I had to compensate, or I had to sort of, that would affect where I would try to take cover. There were different kinds of enemies. I have to decide which to attack first. I remember places and the feelings of it. GTA 5, I don't really feel that. I don't feel an attachment to certain places. Again, because it just throws you in and it gives you everything from the get-go. From a relatively early point, you have access to helicopters, or at least you use them for 1 or 2 missions. And I don't know, there's other little random things. One time I was in an area and I was looking, I just wanted to get a better car. And I was in like a 4-wheel drive. Every car I came across, and I mean like hundreds, more than 100, I would say more than 200, in a row, were only of 2 types. It was like a van, a 4-wheel drive, sort of station wagon van sort of thing, and these sort of Jeep looking things. They were all the same, one of those 2. I don't understand, like, why can't they have more variety of cars and more variety of locations? Too much of the GTA 5 island, to me, feels the same. And it's an impressive achievement how big it is and how detailed. It's even got all these underwater parts and seaweed, and, you know, you can go flying. There's a lake or 2, mountains. It's insane, but there's too much, like, of it looking real, and not enough. Just put in fun Easter eggs or fun things that I can use, even if they don't make complete sense. I remember one thing, I went around and collected all these, I scuba dived for like parts of a submarine. I thought it was a U-boat because I was playing in German and it said U-boat or something. And I thought, why would a U-boat be here near America or whatever? But then I think I realized, I think that just means submarine. But anyway, you get these submarine parts. And then this lady, spoiler alert, she gives you like $10 for it, or betrays you. And then there's like a choice to shoot her. I assume that's what it is. It's flashing blue, red, meaning friend or enemy, I guess you decide. So I shot her. I don't know why you wouldn't, if she's just made you do all of that. But then I really want to shoot the develop. Why would you make me go around the island thinking, you know, this is not the funnest thing, but it's a bit of a challenge. It's kind of relaxing. I'm going around this island. I get to see different locations. I'm still, you know, I use the map to figure out how should I drive this dinghy or whatever it is around. And then I get back and I get $10. It's like a slap in the face. It's a joke. Why not put in really cool, fun things in the game that do stuff? Even in, I think, GTA 3, as you achieved certain things, you would unlock pickups, you know, grenades or a rocket launcher or armor. It felt like you were making progress, and it felt cool that you then had access to those things. And GTA 5 doesn't seem to have that. It's just ammunition. You get to go simulate shopping for stuff. I don't like that. Anyway, so yeah, get rid of the shops, get rid of the mini games. Racing's alright. I think there should be more races. That's an area though where the dynamic can be improved. The way it simulates cars. Too many of the cars feel the same. One thing I would like is if it told you a bit more data if you wanted, like if you go in the air, what height you're at, your speed. That would be really useful, because I get curious as well. I'm flying in a helicopter. I don't always feel like I'm going that fast, but I'm curious. What speed is it? It'd be nice to show that. I just feel like there could be more options of that sort of thing, that kind of detail, rather than putting in a clothes shop and putting in all these things and racks and hats that don't do anything, and you just press a button and your character's standing there, you know, modeling different outfits. Again, like I mentioned last time, that 3 characters is a flaw. It draws me out. It makes me feel I don't have any ownership of them. I was playing recently, or I loaded it, and Trevor woke up on the train tracks drunk. I don't know if that's, and the train's coming. Now, I don't know, maybe that's mildly humorous or comedic, but I find it's like, I don't want to play this. I don't want to be this guy. You know, the protagonist has to be likable. I don't know, I guess you can have an anti-hero in some movies and stuff. You can relate to them. Maybe you're being more realistic. You're not having this super perfect hero. You're having this flawed character. But I don't like that stuff. I just think keep it simple, and let me just do the missions. So yeah, just another couple of things. There's the Friends and Freaks or whatever, the question mark missions. I didn't like most of those. I felt like they were frivolous and silly, pointless, not interesting, not giving any real insight into anything. Could have happened in any order, and a bit didn't make sense. Like, you'd have the icons, so you'd go there, and then your character would sort of randomly run into a couple of people. It's like, no, I drove there. I knew something was there. It doesn't really make sense. And I didn't like the random encounters where you sort of drive and then you see a dot. Now, at first, you know, whenever I saw that, I thought, oh, there's something going on. I better do it. You know, I like to be relatively thorough and enjoy everything that's in a game. And then I would go, and it's just, you know, I remember like saving people and then driving them back like kilometers to wherever they need to go, and they'd be like, thanks, I really appreciate it. And then that was it. I wouldn't get anything. Or I'd find like $500, I'd bring it back to them, and they'd be like, here, keep $50. And then I walk off and I think, $50? Like, it didn't take that long, but really, am I gonna go around? I know it's a game, it's just a game. I don't want to pretend to be philanthropic or whatever, friendly to people. I want to make progress in the game and unlock new features and do fun things, challenging things. Missions have to have some challenge. The races have to have a challenge. I think I won every race first go, and you know, I was trying to, but they were just too easy, and I didn't feel they involved enough skill. Like the motorbikes, really just, your characters just, you tap the thing and they go way over to the side. Another thing is the parachute, way too sensitive. If you just turn it a little bit, they really swing. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's what it's like with the parachute, but I think it needs to be a little bit more sensitive and gentle with your controls. Give you a bit more control. Another thing that drove me nuts is when you're in a helicopter and you try to move the camera around and it keeps snapping back too aggressively to behind it. And I also feel like there could be more camera angles. There were times where I'm in vehicles and I'm moving forward and I just need to see what's in front, which, I don't know, maybe that's sort of cheating because I'm moving the camera to see around it where my character wouldn't be able to, but still, it's just, it's very hard to do certain things if you can't. And the thing is, if I was in that position, I think I would see it fairly well. I don't even know if that's an option sometimes, to be in the character's actual point of view. But anyway, yeah, like with the Friends and Freaks, like $50, how does that compare to like the $5,000 I lose every time I die? It's depressing. So I got to the point now, or late in the late stages of the game, where I didn't want to die. So I was being cautious. That's not how you play GTA 5. You should be messing around and playing and expecting to die. Dying can be annoying enough that you go to the hospital, but to pay $5,000 when it's that difficult just to get money, you know, I don't know, maybe you can just redo missions and get more money. I'm not sure how it works because I just finished the game, but yeah, like, so after that I just decided any random encounters I either ignore or I just kill all of them, or I just keep the money, because I don't see the point. I didn't see any payoff. So yeah, anyway, I have to say GTA 5 is like a pretty big disappointment for me. I don't think and the GTA games are not going in the direction they should be going in. They got so much potential. It reminds me of South Park as well, where I really, really like the first 3 seasons or so. I think they're like excellent. One of the best like funny TV shows ever made. And then I personally hate Anything from say season 7 or 8 onwards, I think is awful. And in between was sort of, in between, like okay. Like so from seasons 4 to 6 or 7, like I don't know, but something happened with the show where they went the wrong direction. It used to be sort of offensive for the fun of it, but really focusing on comedy and being funny and just not caring if people got offended. And now it's like trying too hard to tackle modern issues or topics of conversation. And the characters, the 4 kids they used to be innocent, and now they've become like too adult and cynical. I don't know. Not that I watch the new ones that much, but I can't stand them, and I'm worried that's where Grand Theft Auto 5 is going. Not as fun, too realistic in the violence and what happens. I hated the torture scene. I think that's a really poor decision. That's one of the ones that I think made me click. That's not offensive in the way that the earlier ones were offensive. The early ones were offensive because they let you just steal cars and run over people and shoot people, but it was funny somehow because everything was exaggerated. When people screamed and ran away, it was all somehow comical the way they did it. I think in GTA 2 there was like a group of Elvis impersonators walking around, and I found that hilarious. And the idea that you could just get a spray paint job and come out the other side and the police would be baffled as to where your car went. I really liked that. I thought that was creative and funny. And I think they've got to understand it's more like a cartoon. It's an abstract thing where you can have exaggeration and caricatures. And if you want to be serious, you can really explore dynamics between good and evil, police and or different gangs and the mafia, a bit like The Dark Knight does, or the movie M. I really like the parallels it sort of shows between the police and the underground sort of crime. Anyway, I think GTA 4 maybe did a bit of that, but yeah, way too much customization, mini games, buying stuff, mobile phone, I hate it. There should be more. Starting from nothing, building up, accumulating properties, garages, vehicles that you have access to, types of missions that you're able to do, and a cool story where you're playing both sides and helping all these different random people who you don't have too much of a personal connection to, but you just do your job, you get money, and you get to see the way they tear each other apart, the way the city is insane, and then things build to a climax in various ways. You have to end up killing certain important people, and I don't want the game to give me a choice. I just want it to give me a good story that's involving and then satisfying at the end. And at the end, I don't care so much about the conclusion. I don't think it matters that much. It's a journey. It's a bit of fun seeing these different dynamics and what happens at the end. Maybe there can be some twists. But then at the end, I've got all of this money, I've got all these places and stuff that I can use. I've got a jet plane that I can use at any time in one of my mansions that I now own. I've got, because I've done certain missions over here, I've got these gang members and I can call them whenever I want or whatever, summon them, and they can attack people. One thing I thought would be hilarious is if you could target someone. And then, if you've done lots of police missions, you can order the police to arrest them. That would just be funny to watch. Pick someone on the street and order the police, and you wait 30 seconds, the police turn up, and then they get arrested. Like, what? What did I do? Hey! And maybe they run away, they get tackled, and they get arrested. And their girlfriend or whoever they were walking with is just like, what? They're distraught. I don't know. Again, exaggerated and silly. It would just be funny to watch. It reminds me of one other thing, and then I'll finish this. It's going too long. The game has to make it clear if something can be interacted with or not, and it didn't. There are times where there was a mission, a T or F, and then I would go there, and it would be like, do I go into this building? I try a door, and it didn't work. Some of the doors don't work, some of them do. It was never clear what did. All you would get is that little yellow circle, that's what I'm saying. That's not enough. There needs to be more cases where if I've got a target that I've got to shoot, make it obvious. Like it can be on the map, but also have a little red thing hovering above them. Much like this happens in most games. Mass Effect 2 and 3, I remember it was there. It's not distracting. It's just part of the game. You can see something that indicates this is the item that you need to interact with. This is where you need to park the car. This is where you need to go. So anyway, I'll leave it there. You can comment if you managed to get this far through. I really do like, I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 was still enjoyable, but it's just, you know, it's not what it could be. It's not what it should be, in my opinion. So anyway, bye for now.